England's Chief Medical Officer, Dame Sally Davies, making the news today also. She says we've got a serious problem with obesity in the United Kingdom, and she's got some ideas for how we might tackle that by getting serious about it. She wants a ban on all food and drink except water on public transport. She wants new taxes on unhealthy foods. And she thinks the government should treat sugary foods and sugary drinks in precisely the way that we treat cigarettes. We're asking you if you agree with Dame Sally. Is she right that we need to get serious and to tackle snacks and other kinds of sugary drinks on public transport? Speaking on today's Radio 4 Today programme, she said what is happening is a failure of our society, and attitudes within our society simply need to change.
I think we should look at banning snacks, because we know that on average children eat 3 or more snacks a day. That's 7 cubes of sugar a day. And we have to set an environment where they don't do that.
Agree with Dame Sally. 03030 80 55 55 for your calls. We'll take your text on 81771. The writer and journalist and broadcaster Nina Mishkov is with us, along with Matthew Lesh from the Adam Smith Institute. Matthew, first of all, what do you make of these suggestions, particularly to do with public transport?
Look, I think this is, on the face of it, and even logically, quite ridiculous and revolting form of paternalism. It's quite clear that we're not going to solve any kind of childhood obesity, those who are obese, by simply banning them from being able to snack on public transport. But more so than that, I'm just really uncomfortable with this idea that Dame Sally thinks she has the moral authority to tell the rest of us how to live our lives. I'm just very uncomfortable with this kind of killjoyism. The reality is we can balance our own diets. The reality is that this is an individual responsibility.
But are we doing that? We've got an obesity crisis, haven't we?
Well, I mean, most people, most of the time, are responsible. There are, of course, some people who aren't. I mean, that's what it means to live in a free society. It's accepting that, well, some people are going to make decisions that we think are the wrong decisions to make, but letting them make their own mistakes.
Nina, is this just killjoyism?
No, it's not killjoyism. It's serious concern on the part of Dame Sally Davies and an awful lot of other people and all sorts of other medical institutions. I mean, look, I love food. The winter coming in and rain, and you want sort of comfort food and a bit of snack here and there. But the thing is, we have turned into a society that grazes and snacks all day long. It didn't used to be like that. It used to be 3 meals a day and kind of not much snacking in between. No snacking in between. And the trouble is that we're setting up all these poor kids for a lifetime of ill health, and ill health which will lead to an enormous strain on the National Health Service. Obesity causes not just heart failure, it leads to strokes, cancer, it's the hip operations, knee replacements.
Oh my goodness!
You're
triggering my hypochondria the more you speak.
Well, exactly. but this is causing all of this, and it's because it's become the norm to do this. And Dame Sally Davies, this is her job. She's been called nanny in chief, but this is her job. And anything that puts an extra strain on the national health, never mind the pharmaceutical bill, all the people who are on high blood pressure pills or high cholesterol pills, that these could all be reversed if we ate a more normal diet. And although it seems extreme to ban snacking on commuter services, tubes and trains and buses, that's only part of the larger picture. Although having said that, you're in Belfast, you don't have to be in a London tube carriage, a closed environment, as it were, where somebody starts suddenly eating a McDonald's burger in front of you. So it's just too disgusting. The smell apart from everything else. But no, we seem to have lost all our kind of moral, not moral, but sort of our collective thoughts about how we keep ourselves healthy.
Well, there may be a moral dimension to this, Matthew. There's certainly a financial dimension in terms of the public's interest in this question because, as Nina has just said, obesity costs us a fortune in terms of diabetes and respiratory illnesses and all kinds of other health issues for the NHS. Shouldn't we be tackling this one way or the other?
Look, I'm very uncomfortable with this line of argument to say that because it costs money to the NHS, dollar signs here that we need to manipulate people's behaviour. Ultimately, the NHS
we restrict behaviour with cigarettes, for example. You can't smoke cigarettes in public transport.
I think the equivalence of cigarettes and food, because there are clearly joys and you can safely get food. But also, the NHS exists as our servant, not as our master. Ultimately,
I would take issue with that, Matthew. I would take issue with you. It is becoming, it's as almost dangerous to our health. Combination of sugar, too much fat. It's becoming as dangerous as cigarettes.
But what happened if
it's more dangerous than cigarettes?
What happens if the only way to solve this kind of health crisis is to require everyone to eat grey slush from a state-run canteen? There's clearly a point here where we accept that people have some freedom and autonomy in their lives to make decisions that impact on their health. Alternatively to this, let's say we found out that, because you're obese, you're more likely to die young and you cost the NHS less money. Does that mean we should encourage people to be obese? Of course, ridiculous. And I don't think using the NHS as an argument for public health, it makes much sense at all.
One at a time, please. Nina.
Matthew's taken this to ridiculous extremes. Nobody's expecting people to eat green or grey slush or whatever colour slush you want, or indeed to restrict people's, enjoyment of life. But the thing is, because we are so bombarded with adverts and the sheer availability and the sheer pleasure of all these foods. I mean, I love ice cream. I love all of that, but because of that, it's become the norm. We have actually become a society that is completely unhealthy, and we need to do something about it without actually, because you can't let people go on and just eat themselves into an early grave.
Nina, how would this work in practice, though? A ban on all food and drinking except water on all public transport. People would just bring their own snacks onto the bus or the train with them, wouldn't they?
Well, if there was a ban, you can't do it. And I mean, it exists in Japan, for instance, which is the least fat nation on the planet, and they are perfectly okay about that. I don't see why we can't be okay about it.
Well, maybe they have a more regimented society than we have.
That may or may not be true.
Don't you prize your personal freedom?
They seem to eat more healthily than we do. That's all I can say about that. But if most commuter journeys, I mean, what is the average length of time of a commuter journey? Half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour tops? Can you not really go without food for an hour? Because we used to have breakfast in the morning, lunch in the middle, and supper at night. And 3, 4, 5 hours without food. And that's what our body needs. And they found restricted calories. And the less you eat in terms of, the more you can actually deprive your body or starve your body slightly, the healthier you are.
And let's also be clear that Dame Sally Davies is not simply suggesting a ban on all food and drink except water and public transport. That's just one of a number of suggestions she's making today, which also include, Matthew, if you can pick up on this, tax hikes on unhealthy foods, particularly sugary drinks, sugary foods, and back to that analogy with cigarettes. She wants the government to approach those kinds of unhealthy foods by pricing them upwards to discourage consumption of them.
Look, we can have a discussion about the effectiveness of those policies. And I think it is quite an important discussion to have because quite consistently sugary soft drink taxes haven't proven effective. But I also think we have to ask ourselves quite fundamentally.
Have we really tried them, though?
Well, we have actually. In fact, we've
had effectiveness in pricing upwards with cigarettes, haven't we?
So cigarettes are a good that it's hard to substitute away from. If you try to tax some specific foods, people will substitute to other unhealthy foods, therefore having very low impact on obesity. But I think we also have to ask ourselves here, at what point are we going to say, if you can't trust people to decide what they put in their own bodies, why are we still letting people vote? We have to appreciate that in a free society, people can vote, they have their own sense of self-autonomy about what goes into their bodies. These things come together, and I find it very elitist and very paternalistic when we're saying to people, no, we know better about what you're allowed to eat.
How far do you go with that libertarian argument? Do you go as far as drugs as well?
The ASI, in many cases, has advocated for the legalisation of some drugs, particularly when there isn't a particularly strong harm. For example, we had a paper out on cannabis they can talk about as well when it comes to recreational use.
I don't want to divert into that. I just wanted to see how far you were going consistently with that argument. But when it comes to public transport, would you say that also of alcohol?
It has been legal to drink, particularly on longer commuter trains, to drink alcohol for a long time. I don't think it's proven particularly problematic.
You're not allowed to drink on the metro or on the tube.
That is true. There was a ban introduced by Boris Johnson in the 2000s for drinking alcohol. Of course, Diane Abbott got in trouble about that not too long ago. And I think most people
drinking? Was it a gin and tonic?
It was an M&S gin and tonic can.
Yeah.
I think most people across the political spectrum said, there's really not that much danger to having a can on.
It's not so much danger. I mean, the thing is, if you've ever been on a tube train late at night, you don't even have to be late at night in London. It's absolutely horrendous. Or even a train journey with women going off the day with bottles of prosecco and with getting themselves completely plastered within an hour. I've sat it's a horrendous experience. But no, we have to have a collective responsibility as a society. And if we see society as moving in a direction that we don't want, then surely we have the right to have someone who can say, look, hang on a minute, this is all going pear-shaped and beyond, and we really need to take stock. It does work. Actually, a tax does work. A tax on fizzy drinks has cut sugar content by 29%, but voluntary...
The consumption of actual soft drinks has increased, so you've got to really question...
Voluntary guidelines on sugar content in biscuits it's only fallen by 3%. So you have to take kind of stringent, drastic measures to get any kind of effect. I mean, it's like when seatbelt came, and neither of you are probably old enough to remember before the days of seatbelts. But you have to draw a line in the sand and say, actually, no more. This has gone far enough. The same thing happened with smoking. You've got to say, look, this is not good. Stop now. Reconsider. Don't cut everything out, but just actually try and moderate it. And here are the facts.
There's Michael's there in Finicky. How you doing, Michael?
No, I don't. If you want to eat on the train, eat on the train. What we should be talking about, and by the way, hello, William, we should be talking about healthy snacks and healthy treats. And I have only a few seconds to talk, so I'm going to cut to the rub. Schools need to bang into children's heads. Sugar very quickly becomes a poison once you start consuming a certain amount of it, and we really need to cut sugar out of our diets and just use it for making fuel to run cars.
But do you think education's... We've tried education, Michael. Education's not working, clearly, is it?
No, there's not a big enough push to tell the children, and we need the nutritionists on TV like Jamie Oliver to do shows about here's the healthy treats. Sugar's bad for you. I just need to drum.
Can you take any more of Jamie Oliver on television?
Sugar was made, you'd say, why don't we eat stuff called molasses? Now listen to this.
Molasses.
10 seconds, William.
Yeah.
Molasses is what sugar's made from. They extract the sugar from the molasses. The best part of the meal is the molasses.
All right, Michael.
The molasses, the cows.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Karen's there, I think, as well. How you doing, Karen?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to offer my opinion as a mother and as somebody who actually helps people to manage their weight and what they eat. I just believe that it's education across the board. It's not just to the children. The children are actually getting an awful lot of education in school. Like just yesterday, there was a charity in with my children talking to them about healthy eating and healthy choices. The schools are working very hard to keep it in regimen there. I think in actual fact, it's the parents who need the education, who need to understand that they're in control of the children's money, the access to snacks, the access to what's in their home, the money that they can spend on food outside of school.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's right to ban foods on public transport and snacking. I think there are a lot of people out there who do suffer from things like diabetes who could not be told that they couldn't eat at a certain time. They need to regulate their blood sugar. I think using snacks as an unhealthy word all the time is really not helping people.
It's about healthy
that
snacks.
We should survive on 3 big meals a day actually is really outdated and not healthy. We actually do need to be snacking, but we need to be snacking healthily. I think we're making snacking sound like it's a bad word. I have people coming to me every day for help, and when I ask them to snack, they actually are afraid because they think that the only snacks available are unhealthy options. So it's education for adults, I think.
Karen, thank you very much. Peel an orange. It's a speed food. It's a great snack. And Nina Mishkov and Matthew Lesh are still with us, responding, I think, also to some of what you've just been saying there. Doesn't seem, Nina, to be much as you might expect, much interest on the part of the public here to ban foods and drinks on public transport because we've all become so used to it. It's an expression of personal freedom.
I think that's the problem. We've all become so used to it. We've become so used to seeing people snacking the whole time, snacking in seats every time we sit down, on the sofa in the cinema. We got to stuff our faces somehow, and we that's the problem. And the landscape of people that we see around us are all much, much, much bigger than they used to be sort of 30, 40 years ago. So it's become the norm, and that's the thing. We're trying to reverse that. It seems, I understand what Karen was saying, but I think it was Karen was saying about diabetics. That's a different case. But here's another thing about diabetics. If diabetics modified their diet in the way that, say, Dr. Michael Mosley has illuminated and with his book, then they wouldn't be. You can reverse type 2 diabetes with diet and exercise. So
in some cases you can, but of course you can't reverse the type 1, which is very significant. No, you can't reverse
type 1, and of course people must be able to. That's medical eating, if you like. Yeah. That's absolutely fine, and nobody would stop that. But it's showing. It's just trying to, I can't think of the word, but we everything else is normalised. We're trying to denormalise it, if you like. It seems a shame because the government's target is to halve childhood obesity by 2030, which that's over a decade away.
It is, yeah. Maybe we should be more adventurous than that. Let me take another call. It's John in Belfast. Hello, John.
Hello, William. Would you mind just a very quick comment and listen to the programme where people want to put a tax on
unhealthy foods, yeah.
Unhealthy foods. Well, the unfortunate thing about that is that those people who buy unhealthy foods, and God help them, are those who can't afford to buy decent food. So if you put a tax on it, then you're going to make that food more expensive.
Is that really true, though, John? Because
we've done they're going to pass on the tax to
we've done lots of John, we've done lots of programs on this. The unhealthy food's often much more expensive than the healthy food.
Well, I mean, you go into the supermarket and you're going to buy something off the shelf there, and it's going to be full of salt, it's going to be full of sugar.
That's the unhealthy stuff.
That's the unhealthy stuff I'm speaking about, yes.
Yeah.
So if we say you put a tax on that, then obviously that's going to be passed on to the customer,
and then you stop buying that unhealthy food.
As I said at the very beginning, the only people who buy it are those who can't afford to buy decent food. Maybe they give the people a decent wage, but they could buy the healthy food. That'd be better for them. Instead of working a 0-hour contract.
John,
like that.
Thank you very much. Nina, I think you're jumping in there. Go ahead.
Yes, I was going to say, I completely disagree with John, because healthy food does not have to be expensive. I mean, and we're talking about snacks, which is chocolate bars and crisps. Well, if you're on a very tight budget, how come you can find the money for chocolate bars and crisps? That's surely wrong. But healthy food, it's cheaper to have a boiled egg or to buy a banana than it is to buy processed food.
I know, but we love our processed food. Matthew, you likely to give up processed food anytime?
Look, all in moderation. I think we have to be careful about really discounting the joy and satisfaction people do get from these foods and telling them that they can't eat them. We should encourage healthy behaviour. There are a minority of children who are obese, but we just can't take away people's freedom, and it's really uncomforting to see these kind of calls for really extreme actions like from Dame Sally.
Matthew Lesh from the Adam Smith Institute and the writer and broadcaster Nina Mishkov, thanks to both of you.